The Void is an independent horror film directed by upcoming filmmakers Steven Kostanski and Jeremy Gillespie, and is intended as a love letter to low-budget 80s horror films, particularly of practical effect maestros John Carpenter and David Cronenberg, with Carpenter's The Thing being a heavy inspiration for the film. Now, the film was funded primarily through Indiegogo, which is sort of a Kickstarter type website for filmmakers, up-and-coming filmmakers, to help get their projects funded, rather than going through the typical means of getting a film project funded. And a lot of the money that was raised through Indiegogo, a lot of this budget was used to fund practical monster effects, with very little CGI and green screen used in the film, with only a little bit just towards the end. And it clearly pays off. A lot of this movie is definitely a love letter to those practical effects movies of the 80s, and the money here has been well spent, and you can tell there's a lot of love that's been put into creating these monsters and creatures in the film. Now, the plot is fairly simple. The film uses a closed claustrophobia type setting where we find a group of characters in a hospital sort of surrounded by this mysterious murderous sex cult, in the vein of The Thing or Dawn of the Dead or Alien, where a lot of the tension and drama and suspense comes from the characters being locked together in an uncomfortable and terrifying situation. And the film is fairly well directed. There are some great suspenseful moments, but not all of them work. There are some instances where, say, the setup happens very quickly and there's not a whole lot of payoff, or the payoff doesn't work the way it probably was intended to, and there are some sort of misplaced or random occurrences throughout the film that don't quite work, or are intended as shock scares but don't quite work as shock scares, and just come off feeling a little bit too random, rather than having all the suspense built up and having a shocking reveal or having something really truly terrifying occur. But there is a lot of good build up throughout the film. There are things that are set up very early on in the film that do pay off towards the end, but not everything works as well as some other things. So there are some things where you're left wanting a little bit more, but you don't really too mind, as the majority of the film works fairly well, and a lot of the scares and suspense is used in an intelligent and unpredictable way. You can't really complain considering how much effort has actually gone into creating a horror film that really doesn't get seen or made these days, so you can kind of brush those little things to the side. The cast are fine. There aren't really any standouts. They kind of fit their horror film roles. A lot of the cast miss kind of the charm of similar films where you kind of get to know the characters a little bit. In films such as The Thing or Dawn of the Dead, you get to know the characters quite a bit more before things really start turning bad, or we get a bit more dialogue and there's a bit more establishment between the characters. Even though we know the characters in The Thing, most of them are going to die, we still care a bit more once they do eventually get knocked off by The Thing. So a little bit more establishment with the characters would have been nice. Just when things do start to go south, we do just care just a little bit more for them, and things do end up getting a little bit predictable and cliche towards the end. It's just things that we have seen before, but as a throwback to 80s horror, you can't really be too harsh on that, considering it is supposed to be a homage to that type of storytelling. So in this instance, it's not detrimental to the film. Our lead actor, Aaron Poole, who plays sort of this lost cop in this random American suburban town, his performance isn't really consistent. It kind of jumps all over the place. Sometimes he's quite brave and forward-thinking, and kind of inhibits sort of the Kurt Russell characters of John Carpenter's films. But there are other times where he seems a little misplaced in the film, and it feels as though other characters are taking the lead rather than him being the one to come up with a lot of the decisions. But overall, I mean, the film really is a big love letter to practical effects, and they are used really memorably. The creatures in this film are some of the best creatures we've seen in horror films in a long time, and we're long gone are the days where we had memorable horror creatures. So it's kind of nice just to have a film pay homage to that and give us something new and unpredictable, and hopefully a new type of horror movie monster that people will come to remember in years to come. But you do get a little bit of Hellraiser and a lot of The Thing. The Thing is clearly a heavy influence throughout the film. There are lots of little visual nods and references to the film, so there's clearly a lot of love and respect for John Carpenter and many of the horror films of the 1980s. But this film really, the ending does leave a little bit to be desired. It's sort of left open a little bit, and while some characters' stories are closed off and you're left satisfied with those. There are some that don't quite get the resolution you kind of hope for or expect while watching the film, but this film really is designed as sort of a cult midnight movie, which is really the best way to kind of experience it. Just go out with a bunch of friends, have some drinks, go to a midnight screening or a late night screening, just sit back, enjoy a type of horror film that you just don't get to see anymore. We don't get these cult horror films anymore, so that are designed to be like this. So just have fun, catch it at a limited release, or it is available openly, or it is available on some on-demand platforms such as iTunes, and is slowly becoming available on other streaming platforms, so keep an eye out for it. But any theatre that plays The Room every month is probably the type of theatre that you can expect to see this movie be played at. So keep an eye out for those types of theatres, as they will be the ones to have a screening of this. So it's worth checking out on the big screen for sure, especially after a few drinks with some real horror movie buffs. But anyway, for my final score, I'm going with a 7 out of 10 for The Void. Definitely check it out if you're a fan of John Carpenter's The Thing or David Cronenberg's The Fly, or any of the low budget horror films from the 80s that are so great to get a bunch of friends together and just have some drinks and just hang out and watch a horror film and either be screaming or complaining or laughing, but that's kind of the fun of the experience here. But anyway guys, if you like this video, do hit the thumbs up button and comment below. Are you interested in seeing The Void? Have you seen it? Let me know below. If you want to see more content like this, do hit the subscribe button, and you can follow The Mono Report on Facebook and Twitter at The Mono Report. Thank you and goodbye.